welcome to Poolside with Lee. I'm Lee Varner. I'm the lead service tech for pool products. Today we're going to be talking about installing the 8-port valve. When we send you our rough-in package, we are going to be sending you a set of plans. It's very important that you take a look at the plans and thoroughly look them over and follow the plans specifically to the zones so that the pool system can clean properly. What you'll have on your cover sheet is a legend of what every symbol means. You'll also get the zone numbering. Again, very important as a plumber that you follow the zone mapping as we have it laid out. Your plans are going to come with 4 pages. The simple zone layout, then it's going to show you the measurements and triangulation of the plumbing of the heads. It's going to show you good common practices on how to install our system. And then on the very last page, which is the most important page, is going to be the mapping and the plumbing layout for the 8-port valve. There can be multiple options, and we'll go over with you today how you can plumb in these options. With this system right here, this is what we call a 2-pump system with a 2-valve setup. So the normal valve is an 8-port valve. This will show you how to zone plumb those ports. Very important that you follow the first page on which zones go where, and then it's very important on this page that you plumb them into the proper zone. We will give you a picture of what our valve looks like on the inside from a bottom view. Then you will have to follow these. This is a 2-pump system. This means the hydro trough is plumbed onto a separate pump, but the in-floor pump is going to have zones on the primary valve is going to have zones 1 through 7, and on the 8th port we're going to go over to the secondary valve and we're going to have zones 8 through 10. With this on the secondary, we're going to use our 2-hole cartridge, which is going to have us use the capped method, where we're going to cap the odd numbers 1, 3, 5, and 7, which means the even numbers 2, 4, 6, and 8 will be live plumbing to the in-floor system. At the bottom of all of our pages, you'll see this QR code. Do not throw out the plans, as this QR code is important for the startup of the system. On a 1-pump system, on this set of simpler plans where we only have 6 zones, this is going to be a 1-pump setup. Same system applies. Zone mapping, take a look at how we want the zones to be plumbed. Second page gives you all your measurements in which where to put the heads. Third page, again, good instructions on how to plumb and set the controller and the valve. On this last page with this 1-pump system, you'll see 1 and 2 are together for zone 1. For that, we're going to use a Y fitting. This is what the Y fitting looks like. That'll be used to put ports 1 and 2 together for zone 1. And then 3 through 8, we're going to go as follows: zone 2, zone 3, zone 4, zone 5, and zone 6. Port 8 is going to be our hydro trough. When you open up your rough-in big box, you're going to be pulling out this smaller box, and this is going to be your 8-port valve body. This is what it's going to look like when you take it out, and this is what's going to be inside of it. As you can see on here, the box said primary. If you have a 1-pump system, they're going to say primary. If you have a 2-valve system, you're going to have a primary and a secondary. On top, you're going to have the instructions for the Pool Connect system plumbing, and then you're going to have the valve body itself. So it's important if this is your first time installing our system, that you take a look at the instructions for plumbing the 8-port connect valve. As you can see, the big difference on our valve is it's an 8-port versus a 6-port that every other competitor has, which gives you more options for zone cleaning for bigger or smaller pools. One awesome feature that we have is, because of the spacing that we have on the bottom, is you can put fittings next to each other, i.e. couplers or 90s or 45s. They can go next to each other and they don't have to be offset with each other. It also shows you examples of how the zones will be plumbed in the primary, Also shows you a bottom feature of how our zones go. If you look here on the side, it shows you 1 and 8. Those are the port numbers for that. If you flip it and are looking from the bottom, they're molded, the ports, on the numbers on which one it is. If you're looking from it on the bottom, it goes in a counterclockwise. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, then 8. If you're looking at it from the top down, it goes in a clockwise. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Also to note is it can run 2-inch ID or internal dimensions or internal diameter, or 2.5-inch outer diameter. So you can run 2.5-inch and put it over, or 2-inch and run inside. The other feature to our system is the electronics cartridge that's right here. You can get to the electronics cartridge with 4 screws and a Phillips head screwdriver. After removing the 4 screws, you'll see the electronics cartridge, and it comes with a cord grip that you'll use for when you run your 4-pair wire over to it. As you can see, it's held on with 4 screws. So if this ever needed to be replaced, those will be the 4 screws the only 4 screws you would need to take out. This is where the 4-pair wires are going to attach, and they are labeled for you so you know which sequence in which to put them in. This is the motor. This is what actually spins and controls the stopper flag on the inside. If you're building a bigger pool and you have a 2-valve setup, you'll notice the primary will have the electronics. The secondary is not going to have electronics. It's just going to have a simple flap switch that goes on and off if you want it to stay in a particular zone for any reason. Other than that, the secondary will not have any electronics in it. Not saying it's guaranteed to happen, but if you do not put this safety nut on, this is not enough to hold the tension and the pressure. We'll take the band clamp off, set that aside, take the lid off, set that aside. There's an O-ring, make sure you keep this nice and safe. And then internally, this is what the valve looks like. You can see the water inlet here. This is the ports going out. As you can see, this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. It goes in a clockwise fashion. And this little part right here, as you can see, this is the stopping motor for the controller electronics and the valve electronics that are right here. This controls stopping on certain zones and for how long. This controls all of that on the valve side of the plumbing. So what you're seeing here is what we would want to consider the minimum clearance that we would want at grade level. Basically, the bottom of the valve body needs to be level with the grade. That way it holds your electronics about 2 to 3 to 4 to 5 inches above the grade would be ideal. When you're plumbing the valve body, some good common practices to get into when you're doing it is removing the lid. I'll check the valve numbering so we know which ports and which zones go into which ports, or if we need to add our Y fitting. We want to know if we're going to add our Y fitting, which ones we're going to put that onto. Make sure you have good orientation on which zones or which port is which, so you know where to put your zones and how to plumb them in. So what you'll want to do is not only primer the inside of the pipe, but you want to primer the pipe that you're putting into it, and then you want to glue both sides. So you want to glue this pipe, and then you'll want to glue the inside of the valve body, insert, and put in, and do a 1/4 turn. This is going to be your primer, and you want to make sure you're using a medium body glue. Remove the lid. We want a primer. Primer. You want to get a good amount of glue on here. Don't be shy. And then you want to go ahead and put it in. As you're putting it in, give it a nice 1/4 turn. Set the valve up so no glue drips. And then you'll want to repeat this process all the way through. If you have a Y fitting, you'll put your Y fitting on and then do this process for the rest. So here we show the suggested plumbing for the 2 pumps. As you can see here, you're gonna have your filter pump attached to your filter, the return side, and then it'll run the hydro trough as stated before. The second pump is gonna be running the in-floor cleaning. It's gonna be running the primary and the secondary valve. This is the plumbing configuration of those valves. So in this particular setup, we have a 10-zone setup. So zones 1 through 7 are gonna be on the primary valve, ports 1 through 7. On the primary valve, port number 8 is gonna be the feed line for the secondary valve. In this particular one, which we'll show you, this one has 1, 3, 5, and 7 capped, and then 2 and 4 are zone 8, 6 and 8 are zones 9 and 10. The reason we're doing this is there's going to be a 2-hole cartridge that will help operate this plumbing configuration. And then on your secondary valves, on your odd numbers, you're going to put in a cap. The cap will just be primered on both sides, glued on both sides, and it'll just pop right in, and then there you go. Now that you completed the plumbing of the 8-port valve, it's time to put it back together. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna grab then the O-ring. An option here is put some PUL lube on here to help get a extra good seal. And you'll wanna throw the lid on, put your band clamp on. It's important to note as well, when you are setting this up, that you keep in mind accessibility. And accessibility not only to the lid and the internals of this, but accessibilities to the electronics. In case anything fails, you want to make sure you have it in an area in which it can be accessed. Band clamp on, safety nut, most important. 7/16 ratchet or wrench will work on that nut. All right, so that's how you plumb the 8-port valve for the PUL Connect system. If you have any questions at all, feel free to reach out to me, Lee Varner, the PUL Service Tech.